السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال تعالى في القرآن المجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Dear fellow Muslims, we praise and glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To Him belongs all the praise. And we send peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions and those who follow him until the day of judgment. The verses I recited earlier in Arabic emphasize having taqwa or deep reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The point of our gathering here is to remind each other about taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us not to die except in the state of Islam, which means full submission. And this teaching is so important that Ibrahim ﷺ said the same to his sons, and Yaqub ﷺ gave the same advice to his children. And they were not ordinary people, they were prophets themselves. Taqwa acts like a shield protects a warrior during a war. Taqwa is that shield. And it protects us from shaitan, the smartest and the worst of our enemies. And even if a believer falls into a sin, it is taqwa that makes him get up and get going by making him do tawbah. And iman and taqwa go hand in hand. And both of them have levels. Our scholars have given different levels to taqwa. And basically it boils down to 3 levels. The first level is the fear of punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the beginning of taqwa. One should have necessary taqwa so that it prevents one from 2 things. Tariqul masya or tariqul ghafla. Abstaining from sinning and abstaining from heedlessness, ghafla. So it starts with the fear of punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if I do this thing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to punish me. And then when you walk the path of taqwa, this fear of punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transforms into fear of his disobedience. At this stage, you start to care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And actually, you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this stage, that you are careful not to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you walk further, a stage comes when the fear of his disobedience transforms into love of his obedience. And at this stage, the believers becomes a living example of this verse of the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. That believers are the one who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with utmost intensity. So the fear that starts, it transforms into love. And this is the magic of taqwa, having God consciousness, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how it becomes. And there are too many glad tidings related to taqwa mentioned in the Quran to enumerate. So I'll just list one of them in the interest of time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran, chapter 65, Surah Talaq, verse number 2, that whosoever has taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a way for him out of every difficulty and will give him provision or risk from where he could never imagine. This is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the one who has taqwa, or who at least tries to adopt taqwa, a taqwa lifestyle. So taqwa is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see in us. And it is a misconception. It's impossible that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that He likes and He does not give you that. It is impossible. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for taqwa, and if you are asking sincerely, He will grant you taqwa. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah, He will give you Jannah. The criteria is sincerity and akhlas, or talabul akhlas. If you don't have the akhlas, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for akhlas. He is a Rahman Rahim. Even if you don't have akhlas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, ask me for akhlas. I will give you the akhlas that you need to achieve this, that I want you to achieve. So, we talked about taqwa, and the point of our gathering is to have taqwa, to remind each other about taqwa and have more of it. Now I come to the main part of Khutba, is to talk about something that is not discussed, or we avoid talking about it, and that is the tazkirah of maut, death. So if we go back in time, let's say 100 years ago, back in 1923, none of us was alive at that time. And similarly, if I fast forward to 100 years from now, to the year 2123, none of us is going to be alive. So between this period of 1923 and 2023, there was a time when we were born, and we are here today. And there will come a time when we will all be gone. We will all be dead. So yes, you and me are going to die. Isn't that scary? And if it is scary, it is natural to feel that way. The problem begins when we avoid discussing the topic, and we have a karaha, disliking for this topic. So we know that everyone is going to die, then why do we care about death? Why does this thing matters? So to answer these questions, we need to have some background information. First and foremost, death is a transition, like the first transition we made, which is from the alimul arwah, from the world of souls into this world. Into our mother's wombs. That's the first transition. The second transition is what we, from our mother's wombs into this earth. The third transition, which is called death, is from this world into the womb of the grave. And our fourth and final transition is from the grave into the hereafter on the day of resurrection. So these last two transitions, like the death and the resurrection, they are totally dependent upon how we live our life in this earth. How long, how short, depends upon the quality of life. From the time we became sane, like we had our aql, or we had our shuur, until death, how we live our life dictates our status on death and on resurrection. Our grave could be a place of comfort or discomfort. It totally depends upon how we act in this life. So to summarize, death is not the end of a fairy tale that says they lived happily ever after. Grave is a temporary abode or a temporary place of rest before resurrection, and its comfort and discomfort is tied to how we act in this world. It could be a beginning of everlasting peace or everlasting misery. If Allah forbid, actions are not right, and what is right and wrong is clearly told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and manifested by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then there is no second chance. It's not a game where you have 3 strikes and then among these 3, the best of 3 wins. It's less 1 strike, and if it is gone, it's gone. No other chance. The next 2 stages are doomed. Our saintly scholars say that work for this life as long as you're going to live in this life, and work for hereafter for as long as you're going to live there. So you tell me, what's the comparison between this life and the hereafter? It's like comparing finite to infinity. The world is finite with its finiteness. The akhirah is infinite with everything in it. And hadith of the Prophet Muhammad teaches us that ad-dunya mazratul akhirah, that this life is a crop for the hereafter. What you sow here, you will reap it there. What you sow, so shall you reap. Now let's talk about death itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that He created death and life. So death is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we are one of His creations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Mulk, chapter 67, verse 2, that Allah created death and life in order to test you, to see which one of you is better in conduct. Allazi khalaqal mauta wal hayata liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala. So this life is a test. This is the reality of it, and whose score or result is going to be revealed after you die. To give you an example, back home when I was in elementary school, after our examination, grades were revealed in 2 stages. At the first stage, they would tell us, okay, passing, failing. And in the second stage, they would give us the actual grades and the ranking. So that is that first stage. You can see, you can say that where it will be revealed that whether you are passing or failing. And then on the hereafter, the ranking and the detailed grade sheet will be handed over to you, your book of deeds, and then your rank in Jannah. And Allah forbid, no, not in the fire. So the way we are going to live is the way we are going to die. That is the summary of this khutbah, if I have to say. If we are living in ignorance, we will die as ignorant. If we are living as a Muslim, we will inshallah die as a Muslim. If we are living as a disbeliever or an atheist or whatever you can say, we will die as an atheist or disbeliever or whatever that thing we are talking about. Now let me just talk about the ruh, the spirit, for a moment, and its significance and its status. It is mentioned in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told angels, alayhi salatu wassalam ajma'in, that when I form Adam alayhi salatu wassalam perfectly and blow my spirit into him, fall into prostration. So look at the honor given to Adam alayhi salatu wassalam. It is said that Adam alayhi salatu wassalam laid in clay, in mud, for a period of time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't order the sajda. Only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself blew the spirit or infused the spirit into Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, he ordered angels, and all of the angels did sajda. So look at the honor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself infused the spirit into Adam, our father alayhi salatu wassalam. All the angels did the sajda of ta'zeem to Adam alayhi salam when the ruh was infused, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam alayhi salam, he is my Khalifa, he is my ambassador. So that gives us all of these ennoblements are like built into us. We are ambassador of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have been ennobled by this Latifa Rabbani, you can say, a subtle creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is in the divine realm and entrusted to us, put into our body as an amana. So, and it is from the unseen realm, divine realm, and it returns to the unseen realm. It is described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as command of Him, Amri Rabbi. So the presence of Ruh in our body makes us alive. Eyes are watching, ears are listening, heart is beating. The whole body is working because of the presence of this Ruh in our body. If the Ruh is gone, the whole body becomes dysfunctional. Ears with its nervous system, eyes with its nervous system, and heart with all its arteries and etc. becomes dysfunctional. Blood can no longer flow. This state is called death. So death can be called as separation of Ruh from the body. The Ruh returns from where it came from, which is the unseen divine realm. Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ teaches us that if you lock a human being in a box and put that box away in an island where no human can reach, then two things will reach him no matter what. First is his provision or risk. It will get to him, which is written for him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And second is the angel of death. His hand will be in the box when the time of death comes. A simple way to understand the concept of Ruh is to see the lights in this room. Wires are running to these lights, and they carry invisible flow of electrons called the current. Until the current is flowing, the lights are on. The lights are functional. As soon as this current disappears or is gone, the lights, the wiring, the switches, everything becomes useless. And it's utter darkness. So similar is the situation of Ruh, that if it is there, the body is alive. If it's not there, all the parts of the body are dysfunctional, like dead. Just like human body has its set of needs, Ruh also has its set of needs. And and its set of body is earthly, and its needs are earthly, like food, drink, clothing, air, etc., etc. Soul needs cannot be fulfilled from earth because soul is heavenly, created by divine. It's from the divine unseen realm. In fact, our scholars say that soul is the opposite of the body, meaning that if the body is happy, soul is not. And if the soul is happy, the body is not. And that is what we see, that when we fast, the body suffers. The stomach craves for food, but the Ruh enjoys that, because it allows it to connect to the divine, spend more time in the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the soul needs are fulfilled when it remains intact or connected to the divine subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing else can fill that gap. If it is not connected to the divine, it is in the state of starvation or sickness. So zikr, salah, doing good deeds like helping others, working towards good akhlaq or morals like forgiveness, tolerance, patience, well-wishing, this makes the soul happy. And this is the limit of how much we know about soul, that it is from the divine, it is connected to the divine, and only divinely things can make it happy. And we do not have been given the knowledge to talk about soul any further. So from this point, I will talk about the spirit, and I will put Ruh as a component of the spirit, while the spirit itself has other components like the spiritual qalb, the spiritual heart, the aql, the nafs. So I'm going to treat all of this as the spirit. Like we have the physical body, we have the spiritual body as well. So So now let's look at a subtlety that we need to be very careful about, the spiritual side of our existence. We know that when the physical body gets hurt, we experience pain. For example, you have a stab wound, you experience pain. You have a headache, you experience pain. And you can treat them. You can take Tylenol or whatever that is. The spiritual side can also get sick or hurt or starved. And this happens when it is not connected to the divine, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is starved when we neglect the obligations prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we neglect what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made mandatory, we starve our spiritual side. And we hurt it, our spiritual side, when we do sin. And in either case, there won't be any physical symptom. And that is the biggest difficulty that we can fall into if we are not careful. So I can starve my spiritual side, I can make it sick, I can make it hurt, but it won't say a single word. And this is a double whammy. And I'm going to explain how. First, what does that mean? It means that we need to be very, very careful about the spiritual side of things, because there is no physical manifestation of its sickness. It can get sick, it can get hurt, it can starve, and it won't exhibit any symptom. And because of the ennoblement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to our spiritual side, we need to take care of it more than our body side, the physical side. Number two, the fact that it does not exhibit any symptom, as I said, is a double whammy. And this is how. The person committing a sin is not only distanced from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is also distanced from himself. A veil, the sin acts as a veil or a hijab between him and himself, and between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because he doesn't experience any symptom of it, physical symptom of it, he thinks it's fine. It's okay to do it. And that makes him do sin after sin, and then he gets into this vicious cycle of sinning until the spiritual side gets hurt more and more. And with every cycle, the spiritual side suffers more and more until the person suffers a spiritual death before his physical death. And that is a double whammy, that the person won't have a single clue that I'm spiritually dead while he is before his physical death. So this makes this subtle side of us, which is the spiritual side of us, we need to be very attentive to. Because if we are spiritually dead before our physical death, then it means that we have what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Ran, the impenetrable seal on the heart or the spiritual side, which makes the guidance impenetrable, meaning that the guidance won't make an impact. Now you do whatever you want, you are like, Allah has put a seal on your spirit or spiritual side. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us get into this vicious cycle, and by making us do tawbah to save us from Tariqul Masiyah, which is leave the sins, and Tariqul Ghafla, which is the heedlessness. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear fellow Muslims, the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that the thing that can break the love of this dunya is a reminder about death. Death is called hazim al-lazzat, the thing that breaks the pleasures of the world. It is very important to remind ourselves about death because it will keep us focused towards working towards the death and the next transition, which is the akhirah. We have to prepare for death, and we have to prepare here right now. Every breath. Every second is taking us towards our destination that we have to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our saintly scholars say that all of us are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wise person is the one who meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dunya, meaning that he's already there. We don't want to lose this game, this chance, because there is no second chance. This is only one life is given to us, and the importance of that is, as I described, it's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we want to go back home, which is Jannah, where we came from. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us through this test to see which one of us can make it back home. We were from Jannah. We were brought down to this earth because of divine's infinite wisdom when Adam ﷺ ascended to earth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not shut the door to go back to him, which is Jannah. And we have to struggle and to strive. And death is like a reminder that, prepare yourself for that day, for that time. Secondly, if we remind each other about, or remind ourselves about death, it saves us from excessive love of dunya, which is called Khutba dunya. And Khutba dunya, according to our saintly scholars, is the biggest hijab or veil in front of a believer, a seeker. If you have been if you go to the gym, you would see that there is an exercise in which a person would put a belt or a strap around his body, and he would, put a weight behind him, and he would drag that weight forward. Now, if you ask that person that carry that weight outside the gym, he'll say that, are you crazy? Why would I do that? So the love of dunya is that weight. The more attachments that we have, the more weight that we put, and the more weight, that we carry forward and drag forward. So it's like, not able to make any progress because we have so much attachments attached to us. So how can we walk towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we are like so many, the weight is too heavy to make us move. Love of dunya is very deceptive, engaging, and hard to let it go. And I want to give you an example. Let's say you rent a house, and that you have decorated that house for some time. You live in this house, you live in that house for some time, and you have decorated it, furnished it, and now you enjoy living in that house. Now one day somebody asks you to leave that house, what will your response be? Your response will be naturally, no, I'm not going to leave. What if you are asked to leave your belongings? You would say, I won't leave. What if you are asked to leave your family? You won't say, I won't leave. What if you are asked to leave your car, your, let's say, money or possessions? What would you say? You would say, I won't leave. So you would simply refuse to leave everything that you have accumulated over a period of time. Now, you see how hard it is to let it go of things that we have invested in, cherished, and loved all of our lives. If this is the case, and normally this is the case, then I and you should accept that the preparation needs to be done seriously. This means that we are not there. We are not ready to let go of the worldly things. So it means that the attachments are occupying our heart. And that, according to our scholars, is a spiritual ailment, Khutba dunya. So it takes a daily effort to prepare yourself for death, mentally, especially mentally. So I would say, look at your day yesterday. Yesterday, October 5, Thursday, how did you spend your day? How many time instances can you find yesterday where you think if you were dead, you would have regretted it? How can you count the number of time instances yesterday in which if you were dead, you would have regretted it? Now, before I ask you to classify those into moments of heedlessness or sins, I ask you to do tawbah, and I will do tawbah for my sins because you commit sins knowingly and unknowingly. So I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for pardon for my sins that I did yesterday, knowingly and unknowingly, so that I get a clean slate for yesterday, and not only yesterday, all my previous sins. Astaghfirullahi la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. Now you know how many instances, or you can count instances that you would have regretted if you were to die yesterday. Classify those into moments of ghafla, meaning that it was the time of prayer, Zohar prayer, but you delayed it until even it got past Asr. So that is ghafla. Or you were like Mazallah sinning during those times. So you have to minimize those times incrementally, daily, step by step, removing one heedlessness, one sinfulness at a time, until you get to a day where you think to your best you cannot recall any sin or any heedlessness. That is the preparation for death. So that if the death comes that day, so you won't have regretted it. So we have to minimize those instances of ghafla and masiyah. Another way to think about, to reflect upon death is to reflect on this number 0. All of you know the number 0 and its significance. The good thing about this number is that when this number gets multiplied by any number, and no matter what that number is, it makes it 0. So 0 times a million is 0, 0 times a billion is 0, 0 times a trillion is 0. Similarly, remind yourself that I times death is dead. You times death is dead. Father times death is dead. Mother times death is dead. Child times death is death. Friend times death is dead. King times death is dead. President times death is dead. Scientist times death is dead. Rich times death is dead. Poor times death is dead. And life times death is dead. That's the end. Lastly, you should remind yourself, going back to the example I gave you about the rental apartment, that when you are dead, you will leave your apartment forever. You will leave your belongings forever. You will leave your citizenship forever. You will leave your family, and your family may say, wake up, wake up, wake up. But you won't be able to wake up and console them forever. Brothers and sisters, that is the reality of death, and it is coming. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us prepare for the death. And making a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us prepare, to help us get into the right mode is the first and the easiest thing that we can do, because everything is possible by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives the things that He wants to see in us. And our scholars say that before you complete your dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts and grants that thing that you are asking for, if that thing is what He wants to see in us. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا اللهم أحيني مسلما وأمتني مسلما اللهم أحيني مسلما وأمتني مسلما اللهم أحيني مسلما وأمتني مسلما فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت ولي في الدنيا والآخرة توفني مسلما والحقني بالصالحين. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله الذي يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم واتقوا يجعل لكم من أمركم مخرجا. Before I ask you to stand for salah, I think there is an emergency back there. Is everything okay? We can proceed with the salah or now? No?
If there is a doctor,
Any
physician here?
Yeah. I think I saw Dr. I forgot the name. Yeah, please sit down, just to have some respect of the masjid. Brothers and sisters, I've been asked to shorten the prayer because of the emergency. A sister has fell unconscious. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help restore her health and make it easy for us and all for her and all of us, inshallah. We'll shorten the prayer and make it as quickly as possible. I want all of you to leave as soon as the salah is done and do sunnah at home, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.